This program is brought to you by the Merdeka Award.
Hello and welcome to the Merdeka Award Roundtable. Today the topic of our discussion is the Spirit of Merdeka, nurturing visionaries. That's right, when we talk about visionaries, we're talking about leaders like Tengku Abdul Rahman, Tun Tan Cheng Lock, Tun Viti Sambandhan, men of principle, men of integrity, men of courage, men who acted without fear or favor to do the right thing, to get independence for this country. These men were deeply committed to their own communities, and yet they were also driven by a higher purpose, that is unity and to achieve independence. They succeeded because they had the passion, they had the belief, they had the integrity, and they shared a common dream, a common goal, and that's what drew them all together. Today, when we look at the Spirit of Merdeka and we question ourselves, when we want to strive for excellence, is this about recapturing the Spirit of Merdeka that we had in 57 or 63, depending on how you look at it? Is this about a Spirit of Merdeka in the context, a reinterpretation, if you like, in the context of here and now? Or is it a new Spirit of Merdeka that we must foresee for the future? Well, that's the question, and I'm not going to be the one answering it. We've assembled here today some panelists. Let's begin with the lovely writer and social commentator, Dina Zaman. Hi, Dina. Welcome. And we also have Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Datuk Dr. Khoo Kim from the History Department, University Malaya. Thank you, Tan Sri. We're also joined by Professor Harith Ahmad, who is from the Physics Department, University of Malaya. And although he's being rather modest today, I have to say that he is actually one of the past recipients of the Merdeka Award. We are also joined by Encik Medan Abdullah, and he's the Secretary to the Board of Trustees for the Merdeka Award. And rounding off this panel is Mr. Tharuma Rajah, who is the Managing Director of the Hay Group. All right, lady, gentlemen, the Merdeka Award talks about independence as being more than just national sovereignty. It talks about it being the liberation of the mind and the spirit, and only then can one pursue excellence. What are your own thoughts on what independence is? Let's start with you, Dina. What's independence to you? You, today on this panel, you represent the post-Merdeka generation, so you know, we'd like to hear what your thoughts are.
I think if you want to talk about my generation and the younger ones, there are some of us who are very politically inclined, and there's a lot more who have absolutely no clue about our history, our heritage, our legacy. And I think that from my work, when I talk to young people, people my age, I feel that we are actually right now suffering from an identity crisis. There's a lot of things that we discuss, we talk about, and when you read blogs, forums, even newspapers, comments, and when meet my readers, well, you'll have one, the generation, like my father's generation would say, you know, what's happened to our country? We fought so much, it was supposed to be brilliant, and look at what's happening now. My generation, we're all very invigorated by civil society, the fact that we can say what we want now. And you have another segment of society that says, you know, we don't really care. We just want to get a job. We want to have an easy life. Why must we be bothered about this? But a lot of us don't realize how politics does influence our lives, and that we have, you know, we have the power to change things. I'm not saying that we are anti-government. No, please don't get me wrong. I believe that we can work and negotiate. It's just that we're still very young. We don't have the tools and the skills to negotiate with the powers that be and civil society. We're still clashing. That gap there has not been addressed. So while that is being addressed, I think right now we're still searching for what it means to be Malaysian and what it means to, you know, to appreciate Merdeka.
To appreciate Merdeka more than just being a national holiday.
Yeah.
All right. Let's come to you, Tan Sri. You've had a chance to really look at this, and from a historical perspective as well. What is independence to you?
I usually don't like to use the word independence. I look at Malaysia, and before this, Malaya, as a nation state. A state which was very much in the minds of the people here, even when it did not officially exist. Most people don't realize that before 1957, there was no Malaya as a nation state. But our people, nevertheless, used the term. For example, the first group to use the term Malaya were the tennis players. So the Malayan Lawn Tennis Association was born in 1921.
Right.
Far away from 1957. There were others, and by 1956, we were not yet a nation state, but we were in the Olympic Games in Melbourne. Earlier, in 1949, we emerged as world champion in badminton.
Yes.
Again, Malaya. But Malaya was non-existent. So to me, of that generation, Malaya already made a lot of sense.
So it was a state of the mind, because there was no actual state, if you like, a known actual nation.
But to us, Malaya was real nevertheless.
Right.
Whereas today, the young people don't seem to know anything about the country. Ask them anything about the country and they will happily say, I don't know. And so they don't have that love for the country. And we try to say we must instill. How do you instill? Except by making them feel for the country. And to do that, Malaysia has to achieve something extraordinary internationally. History has shown that whenever we achieve something internationally, like winning the Thomas Cup, going to the Olympic Games, the people feel so proud. And in 1975, when we entered the semi-final of the World Cup in hockey, 50,000 Malayans turned up at the Merdeka Stadium. It was a world record for hockey, and they were so proud of the country. The Malayans like winners. So you must be able to compete, and actually Malaya has lots of reasons to be proud of itself. We have the best kept mangrove swamp in the country, in the world. We have the biggest flower in the world. We have the oldest tropical rainforest in the world. We have the biggest statue of sleeping Buddha in the whole of Southeast Asia, beating Thailand. All these things are not known to the younger generation, whereas they want to feel that this is a great country, and you have to inform them, then they will feel it.
All right, very quickly, Tharuma, you were talking about a rallying point. Is this what the problem is? People, have no concept of independence because of that.
Yeah, I think one of the things I speak myself. I'm a Merdeka boy, having born in 1957, and a rallying point. If I trace back my historical roots, I actually come from the kampong. When I grew up, I was blessed, or I was very fortunate in terms as there was a lot of rallying point in terms of icons or models I can look up to from leadership. See, I was growing up in an era of school. I was one of the last generation which had the English education. I went to a co-ed school which was a very multiracial, which really reflected one Malaysia. We had Malay boys, Chinese, Indians together. And the rallying point at that time, I really look at it, we had models of, when we come to school, the teachers were role models. They were, at that time, they were not graduate teachers, but they had the passion in terms of instilling in the afternoon about sports. They used to challenge us. Then I grew up in the village. One of the very interesting facet or fabric of the village life at that time, I grew up in a kampong. You had leadership at that point, that you have the religious imam and the Bilal, who was just my neighbor the other day. Then you look at it, you have the village sidang at that time. Then you have the wise man of the village, the orang tua kampong. So I was quite blessed and said, leadership was very inspiring at that time. There were no formal rules of regulation and kind of thing. Village life got on a very a coordinated fashion. Conflict resolution was done in a manner, and there was even political leadership at that time. We look at Tunku Abdul Rahman, Tan Sri Swin, Tun Razak, when I was growing up, were leaders I want to emulate. You know, the integrity and the kind of things that really happened. And you had like intellectual leader, Royal Professor Unku Aziz at that time, and I looked up to you read the papers. So for me, there was a lot of rallying call in terms of it. But now I look back into the context of that Merdeka spirit, context has changed. We must come to reality in terms of it. After 50 years, now we need to look at the next 50 years of what it means for Malaysians. Having traveled worldwide broad, I think Malaysia's diversity of Malays, Indian, Chinese today, we are now really tapping into the strengths of kind of thing. And come a common goal and say, today the world equilibrium is shifting towards the east. It's about China, India. Today you look at Malaysia as the largest Islamic sukuk bond. So I think one of the things about leadership, what can inspire around is that diversity. And we need to tap on and find common goals to see that new inspiring vision.
Well, perhaps we have to see ourselves as Malaysians, and rather than this almost, to a lot of people, almost artificial, because there's been such a mix now that, you know, people don't really want to see themselves as Chinese, Indian, Malay, or Dan Lain. They want to see themselves as Malaysians. We're going to go for a quick break right now. When we come back, we'll see, well, what has all this got to do with nurturing visionaries? So do stay with us.